Okay. I'll start off with my very first question. Both are from two very important ladies in my life, and it happened to be the same question. One is my wife, the other is my mother. Karma. I think it would be very obvious. What is karma? So we'll start with the first part of the question. What is karma? And why is it important in today's life to believe in karma? And the third part of the question is, how will it affect afterlife?
Right now, we are talking to each other, which itself is a karma. Karma itself means an action. If you see, according to pure Sanskritam, the word karma just means action, any action. We are talking right now via Zoom. This will be uploaded on social media. That is a karma. Eating is a karma. Walking is a karma. Every action done is a karma. And if you talk about, in fact, you have a path known as Karma Yoga itself, said by our Bhagavan, a way of life, a way of realizing that we are not separate from the divine consciousness, Bhagavan, whatever we wish to call it, according to each person's belief. If you see, a simple way to explain karma will be, we are all familiar with what we studied in school about the food chain and food web, that X eats Y, Y eats Z. For example, a simplest food chain, if you take, there is a plant, there is a goat that eats the plant, and there is, let us say, a lion that eats the goat, the simplest. So the plant does its karma or action of drawing minerals from the water, trapping sunlight, making photosynthesis, converting carbon dioxide to glucose and giving us oxygen. That is its karma. The goat will come and eat the plant. That is its karma. The lion will come and eat the goat. That is its karma. When the lion dies, or even the remaining body parts of the plant or the goat, they are eaten by bacteria in the soil. So simplest food chain, this is the simplest thing we can see of actions or karma. They say among all the organisms created, and even in biology we say that as humans, we can choose certain karma. We have the ability of choice. The goat cannot choose, oh, I will not eat this plant today. I will save it for a monsoon season day after tomorrow. It will just eat it. But we have the power, most of us, hopefully, but through the power of awareness, to choose certain karmas that we do. A simple example. We are taught as soon as we wake up to look at our hands and say Karagre Vasati Lakshmi, Karamule to Gauri, so on. It is a karma taught to spread positive vibrations. Whether you do it or not, that is, whether you do that karma or not, is your choice. And again, to go a little more deeper, that also is your karma. You know, often we say if someone is undergoing something, very few people say it is my karma. Whether it is success, whether it is joy, whether it is sorrow, whether it is sickness, whether it is financial problems or whether it is financial abundance, it all comes down to a very simple thing known as karma or your actions. If I keep this finger on fire, will it affect me or not? If I just keep this finger on fire, let it be any fire,
Obviously, yeah.
it will burn me. That is a karma. But supposing someone tells me don't do it. Because if you put your finger over there, it will burn you. But even then, I choose to do it. And then I say, oh, see, my finger is burnt. That is karma. So karma here refers to the actions. And our Sanatana Dharma is very clear on this aspect. That whatever you are experiencing now, whatever you experienced, whatever you will experience, that is past, present, future. It is all based on karma, actions that have been done. What propelled us to do a particular action? For example, let us say today, God forbid, I'm facing a financial situation. It is because of some karma. Let me give an even more relevant example. Right now, this entire COVID-19 lockdown, this whatever that is going on all around us. It is all our karma only. It is all our actions only. Not one single person. As a collective planet, we have ended up tipping the scales of nature. Cyclones that have been striking India over the past 2 weeks. It is karma, because it is all the effect of global warming. See, global warming, 3 effects. One is increased parasites, pathogens. Pathogens means disease-causing organisms. Like, we have, COVID is not the only one we have faced. We have also faced Nipah virus, and we have faced a host of them. Bird flu, swine flu, it keeps happening. So whatever diseases we face and the cyclones that we face, all is because of karma. So in short, you reap what you sow. That is what is karma. So what I do now dictates my future. So as a human being, upbringing, awareness, sadhana, all this makes us think, I am going to do something now. What effect will it have? This karma I'm going to do, for example, supposing I'm given a matchbox, I can either light a lamp with it and remove the darkness, or I can pour petrol on something or set somebody or someone on fire. So you have the choice. That is karma. The choice that you make is karma.
Very nice explanation.
And definitely, as you said, it will affect the future.
No. So to answer his subsequent question, he asks about how it affects going forward into the afterlife.
Supposing I have, we all invest in mutual funds and, bank, what is that? All those FDs and all that. So, we deposit a particular amount every month and you get interest paid on it. Depending on the amount that you invested, accordingly, you can reap the benefits. Say after whatever time that Shankarana can explain the details much better. I'm just explaining from a very layman point of view. So similarly, what I do today will influence what happens to me. Future can refer to next minute, after 5 days, after 5 months, after 5 years, or after 5 janmas. Because even in the bank, you have different policies, no? I mean, there are different policies according to customer. Like even when we buy a cloth for Deepavali or Pongal or whatever festivals, it is tailor-made to our size, our fitting. So similarly, karma is tailor-made to each person's fitting. So supposing I have the power now in the lockdown, I can either choose to torture another person with my depression, or I can choose to spread positivity by probably helping someone monetarily or mentally or spiritually, the choice. But if I choose to trouble someone now, it will come back to me when, again, time is a very relative concept here. Because in all our shlokas, very easily we have said a simpler shloka. Let us say Ganesha. The Atharva Shirsham says, Tvam Kalatrayatita, you are beyond time. So when we will get it, we don't know. Your karma can be like a mustard seed. that the moment you plant it, say in 3 or 4 days, you sprout and you have flowers also blooming abundantly. Or karma can be a bamboo plant that even after planting 5 years, you don't see anything coming out and suddenly whoosh, you have everything coming. We see this in people's lives, no? They have apparently very successful lives. They are globe trotting. That's why I'm putting it in inverted commas, because whether it is success, again, that is a relative terminology. Financially abundant, society wise, they are doing very well. But suddenly we see things just change. Suddenly some things come. Karma. Whether it is of this janma, past janma, that, as they say, depending on the interest rate that we have bonded with our maker.
Very nice.
So is there an option to go with without an interest rate clause?
That's what I was going to ask you.
Spoken like a true blood financier. Yes, there is an option wherein, we can minimize the interest. See, zero interest, again, for that we should become a Ashtavakra or a complete yogi who doesn't attach any form of actions, because do we have that in us to do complete Sharanagati? See, Bhagavan gives us a very simple way out from here in the Gita. He says, Karmanyeshu Mamphaleshu. You just do whatever actions according to Dharma, within the framework of Dharma. You do correct actions, because by actions, again, someone may justify and say, I will go and feed fruit laden with dynamite to an elephant, and then I will do Aarti to Ganesha. That it doesn't gel together. So within the framework of Dharma, that is Dharma, in other words, meaning duty, you do your duty and do complete Sharanagati to Bhagavan. That way, we can learn how to slowly minimize. See, the ultimate aim of interest rate is removing the aham or the I. The more and more we have, I did that, I did this, I built. Some people, unfortunately, they will donate to a lot of goshalas, or they may donate a small tubelite to one temple, and then they'll put one big name over there, donated by whoever, Shriman, Shrimati. So it means...
No, sometimes audit requirements require you to put it. Otherwise, how do the auditor will check that it was put by you?
But
Krishna wants to know, he wants to keep accounts.
But Bhagavan as an auditor doesn't need all these physical accounts like us. No? We are all connected through our actions, every action always. That is why we have a Devata for this only.
So this action is not governed by God, but the mens rea is governed by the God.
Correct.
So as long
this action is governed by my recognition for success. So that 5 people will tell, I donated a tube light to the temple.
Okay, so coming on to interest, is there even an exchange offer, or rather a conversion option, where I can convert my good karma to get moksha instead of having another life?
If your yearning is very strong, if your yearning is completely strong, in Tamil there is a word that we say patra aruthu valvir. In other words, it means you it also comes in the Kanda Sashti Kavacham, that pasa vinegal patradaniki, wherein you are letting go of all the attachments and all the things that we get stuck on, like an octopus. Octopus also has only 8, but we have ultimate where we are stuck. If our yearning is strong enough, that, as Anna asked, if my karma is very good, if we have done good karma, and your yearning is very strong, yes, there is a way possible that has been shown by a lot of rishis and devatas, and very recently it was shown by someone who had incarnated on earth known as Andal, who says in a very simple pasuram in the very first line that, just answering Anna's question, supposing your karma is clean, if you have another element added to it, you can achieve that moksha very easily. Where she says bhakti, she talks about bhakti. with this complete, if you know your karma is good, if you know your account balance is good. See, if you know your account balance is good, you know you can invest, you can buy this, you can buy that. So depending on our invest, if you are looking for the ultimate goal of moksha, then using bhakti, it is possible, because Andal says, Narayanane namakku parai taruvan. In other words, the same thing. Bhagavan says, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, after giving so many shlokas, and yet Arjuna is still bewildered at the end of the day. He still is clueless. He just says, okay, you're saying something, I'm going to fight. Andal, because she is an avatar of Bhuma Devi, a wife of Mahavishnu, she says it in the first song. Okay, no fuss. See, you wake up, you have slept enough. Wake up, come to the path of bhakti. Let us go to Krishna, because Narayanan is ready to give you moksha. But for that moksha, as Anna said, if your interest rates are good, if your investment plan has been good, if you have done sound financial planning, correct financial planning with the element of bhakti, yes, completely we can go back to the, as they say, the ultimate goal of Sanatana Dharma. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
Anand, you have your answer now.
Very beautiful. Thank you very much. Good, Shankar and Shiv. Thank you so much. I have another very important question about moksha, because Shankar just touched upon it, and that was actually my next question. This is from my cousin Sukumar. He lives. His name is also Srinivasan, Subramaniam Srinivasan, but we call him Sukumar. He lives in Chennai. He is about 64, I think, 64 years old. So we have a big age gap between, just like you and Shankar, it's between me and Sukumar. So he is asking, what is moksha, and is bhakti necessary to attain moksha?
That is a wonderful question.
You're going to do your Narada Bhakti here, or you're going to talk about Bhakti?
Concept of, no, that Narada Bhakti, that is specifically, it is reserved only for Gurgaon Shankara and his family, the Kailasha of Gurgaon, where I've been, I've got the label of being a Narada. But at the end of the day, Narada will come in here, because he is, after all, someone who shows us a path to Bhagavan. Moksha. Moksha is a state when, see, most of the Puranas, everything, Upanishads, they come to one concept, that this is all the dream of Narayana. All this that is happening around us, whatever is happening right now, this conversation, everything is a dream of Narayana. Somewhere someone is getting married, somewhere someone is breathing their last, somewhere someone is getting born, somewhere a lion is hunting a deer. Every action, not only in this planet, in the multiple planets that are there, in the multiple universes that are there, this is all just a dream of Narayana. The same thing Annamacharya, who shows us a path of bhakti, he sings Nanati Bratuku Natakamu. This whole thing is a nataka. This whole thing is just a drama. So moksha is realizing that this is a drama. This is all just a drama. And once you realize that this is just a drama, the way we process will be different. Like if someone is insulting me right now, if I realize it is part of the karma, as we spoke in the beginning, some karma I did that I'm earning with interest right now, that person is scolding me right now. If I realize that, rather than behaving like a Coca-Cola bottle, immediately spewing out, that the moment you are shaken, immediately you spew out and earn more karma, moksha is just realizing this is just a natak. This is just a drama. We all have to go back and merge with that. You can call it consciousness, you can call it Narayana, you can call it Shiva, you can call it Ambika. We have multiple names, whichever name you want to call it. Kanchi Paramacharya says, we are all just like the waves and Paramatma is like the sea. So we are nothing but a wave. We are part of that. But because of our karma, because of our ahankara, I consciousness. Oh, I am the body, my head is paining, my eye is paining, my money is in trouble, my wife is torturing me, etc. Because of that we separate ourselves from that without realizing we are that. See, in Sanatana Dharma, repetitively the same concept is dinned into you. You are that, Shivoham, Shivoham. There are many people, there's a beautiful concept in India wherein we practice the Shabarimala Ayyappa Vratham, wherein one mandala of Vratham is done. You follow certain disciplines. Let us not say Vratham, let us do like Shankar Anna's mother, Raji Perima, my aunt, would say Uppavasam. You are being close to the Tattva by following certain disciplinary practices. And finally, when you walk after going through the jungle and all that, see, when you climb the 18 steps, the first thing you see is not Bhagavan. The first thing you see is Tattvamasi. You see Bhagavan also later. The first thing you see is Tattvamasi. So it hits you. After that mandala and after that, you're like, oh wow, Tattvamasi. You are that. I am that. That's why you have Swami Sharanam. You call each other Swami Sharanam. You don't call each other by, say, whatever your name is. Like you don't call me Shiv. I don't call you Narayana. I don't call him Shankaran. I'll just call you Swami. So moksha is realizing that you are that. See, there's a very beautiful prayer known as Kanda Guru Kavacham. In that, they say, Unnil Tannai Kati, Tannil Unnai Kati, Engum Tannai Kati. In English, it will be difficult to bring it out because it just means this is referred to a particular form of Bhagavan known as Subramanya Swami. He shows him in you, that is that Bhagavan is in you, that Bhagavan is in me, that Bhagavan is in everywhere. So the moment I realize that my mother-in-law who is torturing me is him, the milkman who is torturing me is him, my boss who is scolding me is him, apparently everything that is I meet is getting free. And how do you get free? By just realizing that everything is an act of karma and everything is the same manifestation in different forms. Here I would like to say what Ramana Maharishi said. Someone asked him how to treat others. Someone asked Ramana Maharishi how to treat others. Ramana Maharishi said, there are no others. You are Arunachala, I am Arunachala, the stone is Arunachala, the plant is Arunachala, dog is Arunachala, COVID virus is Arunachala, everything is Arunachala, everything is the divine. So that option Sanatana Dharma gives us. That realizing everything is divine. Narayanane Namakka Pare Taruvan. The key to moksha is, see, first option is karma. As Anna said, once you realize your interest is good, your deposits are good, you haven't withdrawn a lot, too much. Using the key of bhakti, you can unlock the apparent door to moksha. There is no door to moksha. I'm just giving a metaphor to understand. The gateway, see in movies, if you have seen old times, if you show Vaikuntham, 7 doors will open and then they will show Bhagavan sleeping. Those doors are nothing but just opening with bhakti, let us say the dimension of Narayana. Or to give you a more simple example, if you see Kailasham, coming back to the movies, they will show even ghosts and Rakshasas and all, Pishachas and all will also be over there. To say that it is that easy, it is not difficult. We think it is difficult. The key is bhakti. And I don't think so opening a key and operating a lock is very difficult. It isn't. But if you keep putting
it to the wrong lock, it will be a problem.
That has brought in a beautiful point. Yes.
Yeah, the next question.
Next question is, I have not written it down, but I have as you were speaking, I was just thinking, we are quite pious. I mean, I wouldn't call myself very religious or anything, but I do my Sandhya Vandana morning, evening. My son does it. My wife does her prayer. But my daughter is a very firm believer of karma. That's all. She believes, she thanks God, but she does not really go and ask for anything.
You don't need to ask. We never ask.
Is that the right?
There's no question of asking.
not asking, but there is no religious or
No, we are
ritual.
not a religion. We are not a
Yeah,
religion, first of all. We are not a
very good.
religion.
So that's something that I wanted to hear from you. So,
Karma and dharma is all about enforcing duty.
okay, so
Religion is about faith.
faith,
The
correct,
difference between faith and duty.
excellent. So
Faith,
that
faith doesn't allow any questions. It is
okay.
enforced bhakti. It's an enforced bhakti.
Excellent. That leads me to the next question, and probably also the answer also coming from Sukumar. How is bhakti different from psychophancy?
No, it's see, psychophancy is done with a vested interest. Psychophancy is done to gain. Psychophancy is done to get the favors of somebody who can grant you something.
Okay. Now I will.
Bhakti, there is no expectation. You are not expecting the God to come and give you anything.
Anything, correct.
Just being happy in the presence and the knowledge of the God. Now, again, when I use the word knowledge, don't understand it the way we all understand information and data processing. Knowledge is, in this sense, the awareness of that God. And that God, again, is what your daughter is saying, karma. Is the duty. The duty is the God. So, when you are very clear as to what your dharma is, and based on that dharma, your action flows. No, you're not thought through the process of the action. Way, bhakti, for bhakti, there are only two people I look to. Hanuman, Meera. You keep them both in your mind, you will know what bhakti is. And you know what bhakti can do. Just these two people. There are thousands of people, thousands of cases, and not only in Sanatana Dharma. I mean, hundreds of Christian monks who have displayed enormous reservoirs of bhakti. So, bhakti is not exclusive to Sanatana Dharma. Bhakti is there where action is based on dharma.
That would have been straight away my next question. Is it across religions?
It is.
How does a Muslim or a Christian or a Jain or a Buddhist differ?
Anybody who bases his actions on dharma is keeping a clear work conscious, what shall we say, with respect to the environment and their duties. And thereby they are just that one small smidgen away from bhakti. And bhakti just happens. It's not something that you plan.
Excellent.
It just happens. That's it.
Falling in love. It just happens.
There's no falling. It just happens. There's no falling here.
Just right.
There is no rising here. There's no falling here. It's just a happening. It's like the sun rising. Sun does not rise. We are just turning around in our own head.
So I have one more question from, again, my wife about Pitru Karma. There are people who, in our families, we believe in, doing the karma for elderly who have passed away. Does it have a negative effect if someone has not been doing it for their elders or someone refuses to do it?
Okay, I will tell Shiv to give the entire reasoning of it, but my limited understanding is very simple on this. Anything that you do has to be voluntary.
Should not be forced.
So if somebody is going to scare you that this will happen, that will happen, if you don't do, then the very purpose is lost. You do it because of your bhakti. Mata, Pita, Guru, Daivam. God is lost. God doesn't even exist. We only look at God when the first three are gone. Then there are, of course, godless people who don't even look at anything. So we're not talking about them here. When you're talking about Pitra Karyam, we're not talking about them here. So you do it out of your sense of gratitude because your being here is a result of their DNA.
Correct.
That scientific miracle, or what we can just simply call as a miracle, the probability of it happening is so small, it doesn't even register. So just being in gratitude and doing it is what this whole thing is about. So if somebody has to come and tell you, you do it, otherwise you will lose an eye or something will happen to you, the purpose is lost.
Correct. Very true.
She will give you the spiritual part of it. I've given you my understanding part of it.
What he spoke right now was totally spiritual, because spirituality is based on common sense and perfect science that he summarized. Just to add to what he said, we are just acknowledging our gratitude to 3 generations of people who, as he said, are responsible for our DNA, who are the cause for us having taken birth in this dimension in Narayana's dream to fulfill whatever role that Bhagavan wishes to do for us. So just having that gratitude towards them by offering them, following certain protocols like how a yajna is done, how Sandhya Vandanam is done, how a particular puja is done, or how an electric appliance is, there's a particular way of switching it on, switching it off. Similarly, there are certain codes of conduct done so that we can express our gratitude, because at the end of the day, deep of heart, bhakti can be born only when there is love or gratitude. And if you see 99% of the time, people who have depression and anxiety is because of lack of gratitude or lack of love. So to instill gratitude and love, that Bhagavane, I thank you. Pitra, oh ancestors, I thank you. So the moment you say thank you, there is a lifting of the heart. And that is all our ancestors want. See, talking about negative effects, it is believed that we are offering them food and for water every Amavasya when the Tarpanam is done. Because the Amavasya is sun ruled, like how the Purnima is moon ruled. Amavasya is a day when the sun is more intense. So it is said they feel thirsty. So we offer them water. And Shraddha.
Okay, I really thought Amavasya is moon ruled. I really did not know this. This is
It is ruled. I meant the Surya Tattva is more on Amavasya. So that is why Amavasya, you do it in the morning. You do the ritual in the morning. But Purnima is moon rule, so you do Devi Puja in the evening. Like more of the puja happens in the evening, not in the morning.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you should not do it in the morning. Please do it in the morning. But Amavasya night, generally people tell you to sit quiet. In other words, in Tamil, they'll say Summa, just sit quiet, don't do anything.
Okay.
So we are just acknowledging, and because they feel thirsty. And who are we giving water to?
Our ancestors.
Parents, grandparents, and most probability is you would have grown up with them on their lap, listening to their stories of how Hanuman relieved Sita, how Ganesha was born. They are after all our blood. And Shraddham, that is, which is done on the Tithi when they pass to the next dimension, that is done to feed them. We offer them food. And who are we offering this food and water to? After all, our people. So as Anna said, acknowledging our DNA and offering them, it is one of our fundamental duties. And if you do it with love and gratitude, only the best. In fact, most of the dharmic texts tell us, if you do the Pitrakaryams correctly, that is the monthly Amavasya Tarpanam, the Mahalaya Paksha Tarpanam, which comes between the Paurnami after Ganesha Chaturthi, after the Naraka Chaturthi, after the Ananta Chaturdashi, the 10th day from Ganesha Chaturthi, the Purnima from there up to the Mahalaya Amavasya, those 15 days, and the Shraddham, which is celebrated on the Tithi when the parents departed. They really never go. Did we really come? That's another thing. But as an honoring, whoever does this, that itself will instill so much gratitude in them and ushering the blessings of the Pitras. Because what the Pitris do, they say, as Anna said, Mata Pita Guru Devam. In fact, in the Mahalaya Paksham, you are offering Tarpana to people who probably don't have anyone doing Tarpana for them. There is a particular mantra, I'm not entitled to tell it, but wherein you bring in, you acknowledge whoever has touched your life in a positive way or in a negative way. Because everyone is a guru in some form or the other. So you offer them also that water with that sesame seeds. And Kanchi Periva says, for those scientific minded people who will say, oh, I am offering for water and sesame seeds here, how will it go and reach the Pitras who are in some other loka? Kanchi Periva gives a simple example. You send a telegram. How do you send a telegram? What do you do? Where do you go?
You go to the post office.
And what do you pay them? You pay them money and you give them the message. Do you see the telegram to whoever the receiver is, or you just pay the money and come? You just pay the money and come. That is processed in a particular way and it reaches the whoever the receiver is in the form of a telegram. So Periva says this is how this also works. By you offering this water and the sesame seeds over here, it reaches our ancestors who are just in another dimension. See, Sanatana Dharma is very clear. There are multiple dimensions. So they are in another dimension and we are just acknowledging them, filling us with gratitude, because if you have gratitude and love, the fundamental basis of one of the most ancient languages is Anbe Shivam. Love is Bhagavan. And that is the fundamental ruling of any action.
Beautiful. Mm.
Let us not be worried if I don't do it. As he said, Bhagavan will come and poke my eye, or my Pitris will get unhappy with me and then something bad will happen, because our dharma is not based on this, that if you do this, you will get that. If you do
and
that.
Which parent or grandparent is going to come and haunt you?
It is just basically what I'll summarize what you just said. What we are trying to do here by such activities or such actions is we are being grateful to our ancestors, and in some way or the other, even if it is a symbolic action of pouring water with sesame seeds, just thanking them for whatever we are. And as Shankar pointed out, the chance of being there itself, is one in I don't know how many hundreds of millions. So for that, we are thankful. We are just passing it on to the elders, saying how grateful we are. And just going backward to what I mentioned about my daughter, again, bhakti does not mean you have to go and ritualize something. Be thankful all the time for whatever you do. And
Hanuman never ritualized anything.
Correct. So that's a very important point that I noted. Another important thing that I also was thinking as we spoke was my daughter is absolutely not judgmental. I may make a passing comment about someone, then I'm, oh God, this guy is like that or whatever. She corrects me. She says, why do you do that? You don't even know the situation that he or she has gone through. And you've already passed a judgment about that person's character or whatever, based on an action that they just did now.
Correct.
And I corrected myself. This happened very recently.
Everybody to be at the same bar is not humanly possible. So these kind of divergence will happen. It is for every individual. That is why it is very important for every individual to do the karma. Because sometime doing the karma, because my mom used to be very strong about this, fake it till you make it. So somewhere just doing it, you start just doing it because you know it. So
this is something
that is where the importance of rituals come in.
Correct. My father always says that. He says, just make it a habit. You try to do it one day, the next day again, the next day again, the next day again. It automatically becomes a good habit.
You.
And
it
then
becomes
it
you.
Character and you become that. That's it.
That's it. It becomes you. That's it.
Who is Anand? When you look at it, this is what it is. He keeps
Correct.
doing all the time,
Correct.
and automatically it just gels with your character. So very important. Thank you.
Tatvamasi. Tatvamasi.
Tatvamasi. Fantastic. Very nice. Sure. Then I'm just checking if I have missed any question. Moksha, I just calculated different forms of. Okay, my other question is, by doing a lot of, these people do a lot of discourses where people go and attend, and unfortunately, I also see that it is commercialized quite a bit. Many of them are doing it. How do you differentiate between a fake guru?
Okay, no guru is fake. Okay.
Okay.
Again, we need judge anyone.
Yeah. No guru is fake. Some commercialize, some don't commercialize. Some commercialize a lot, some commercialize less. All that is immaterial. Again, that is their karma, not our karma. What are you in fit for? That's all that matters. So if you are going with a particular question, if it's getting answered, it doesn't matter what the state of the guru is. The learning happens when you question. The teacher arrives when you articulate that question. It is that simple, and it is said very clearly in our thing. Even Dakshinamurti just teaches by silence.
Very good. Very nice.
It is not something that you go and sit and say, who's this teacher? No, there are been terrible teachers. There are teachers who are drunkards. There are all kinds of things happened. But they have to teach you something, right?
Correct.
Possibly not how to behave like a teacher, a bad teacher.
Correct.
Learn something out of it.
Correct. Yeah.
How receptive are you to learn something? If you are not receptive to learn something, then you're not learning. You're only sitting judgment again, same like what your daughter is teaching you in judgment.
Being judgmental, correct.
So this somebody doing this, somebody doing that doesn't make any sense. They are what they are, that's all.
Okay, but I have one doubt, Shankar. I did not teach her that. She just used to.
That's why you go and thank the DNA.
Superb. You went down to the next generation and connected it with my first generation.
That's it.
It's just DNA.
It's simple.
Very, very beautiful. I had another question about psychophancy because you touched. I don't know how good you are with time today. Just have one more question, very important. We have a lot of psychophancy, if you see, in particularly in the south of India, in Tamil Nadu and all that, about cinema stars, about a leader, about something, and you just said, Shankar, that you have something to gain out of it, but you see a lot of masses simply just making big hoardings, posters, pouring milk on these. Why and how?
Same ego. The psychophancy comes from showing I'm a bigger fan than you. So if you pour 1 liter of water, I will pour 10 liters of water. Then you will pour 100 liters of water. It is that simple. So see, the psycho, I said, you are expecting something, right? So in this case, it's megalomania.
Megalomania.
You want to be the biggest fan. Now somebody will report about you on the papers. You do something very stupid. You come on the papers. So you'll come. So then you become the hero of the village. Oh, see, our boss, our man, our leader. So the psychophancy part is very simple. There is nothing to sit and analyze in this. This is not a big Freudian class that we need to go into. This is one of the easiest things to understand. They are just looking to be different from the crowd. And there is a crowd. I mean, there are 50 lakh people following one politician or a movie star. How do you stand out? You do something stupid. You cut your lists and from that blood you write a letter. It comes in the papers. That's simple. No, nowhere did Meera sit and cut her things to say, Krishna, take me to moksha. No. She was rejoicing life. Nowhere did Hanuman cut the thing, he tore apart his heart to show where they were all sitting. But that was just to, in a figurative way, shown to Lava and Kusha. That's all. But really, nobody does all these things who are in bhakti. So psychophancy is driven only by a very simple thing. Either you expect them to notice you and come and give you something, or you want to show your rabble-rouser group that you are the biggest rabble-rouser amongst them. So it's all driven by the ego, megalomania. That's it. There's nothing special about it. It's a sad thing because there is nothing positive in it. If at the end of it, somewhere that you can give me some answer that bhakti is somewhere connected somewhere there, and doing this you will attain bhakti at some point, I would even say that there is something positive in it. But unfortunately, it doesn't end there.
Correct.
It's in depression and suicide and death.
Very true. Yeah. So I have one last question. Probably I also know the answer, but I think it's important that you talk about it. The fear of death, what will happen if something happens, to someone, particularly when he's, still a youngster earning and for doing something for the family. We recently had a tragedy in Germany. One of the Indians who came here, his, family is in India. And he suddenly just died, a heart attack or whatever. Very healthy guy. He was working here. He was posted just 1 month, and he just passed away in his house. Very small kid as well, one-year-old kid. So these things happen. It's inevitable. You can't touch. Is there anything that you can explain or give us a solace behind, why we should be, careful in our karma, in our thoughts, probably in the way we do things. I'm not for a moment even saying, it is his own karma or whatever. How do we overcome that fear? What will happen? I'm traveling, you're traveling, someone is, what will happen to the family?
So basically your question is two parts here. You want to know how to reconcile to this, and B, knowing the fragility of life, how to get over the fear of the fragility of life.
Correct.
Okay, Shiv, you can answer this. It's a very simple answer. Please go ahead.
I'm getting my karma served after playing Narada for the past 1 year. So I'm getting my karma served.
I think we should always have a guest in our show, so that it makes fun for me.
It's a very throughout the yugas, Parikshit had this problem in the Srimad Bhagavatam when he knew about that he was going to die. In his case, he knew he was going to die in 7 days, and he knew how it was going to happen, that so and so snake would come and bite him. We are all Parikshits. The thing is, we don't know when we are going to, depending on the interest rate, whether we are going to go back to Vaikuntha Kailasha or come back again, that's another question. But when we are going to drop this clothes and take on a new set of clothes, in other words, passing away. I remember this quote by Sadhguru. Sadhguru had said that, in Tamil, if someone dies, especially in village, they say Kala Maitanga. I love this quote by Sadhguru. He says that roughly speaking, it comes to their time was over. Like how a particular battery has a particular lifetime, and then you say, oh, battery is dead. Knowingly or unknowingly, we say the battery died and we throw it away. We don't even give it a proper burial, poor thing. But on a serious note, we are all like different batteries. We all just don't know how long we are here, how long our expiry date is there. That is why in biology, we study average lifespan of XYZ is so much. But again, science cannot answer it because it varies according to the karma. How much karma was remaining, how much karma is carried on balance, what do you do in all your finances? Balance, carry over, all those terminologies. So if it gets over, once the karma is over, once the battery is done, that's it. We just drop it. So Sanatana Dharma gives us a very easy way out. You don't need to be scared because um, death is not like something that, light is seen and someone comes and takes you. Different metaphors are given. It is nothing but, it's just a passing over. The expiry date is over. So that is why a very simple way is we have what we call as the Mrityunjay mantra. Every time you be aware that we are all parikshits. We don't know how long we are here on this earth. So every moment we should be aware what karma am I generating. I shouldn't generate further negative karma as they call it. Just live with complete Sharanagati and Bhakti, or like your daughter, doing your karma 100%, offering the fruits to the divine. Either you follow whichever path you have, karma, bhakti, whichever, and just live as long. That is why a very beautiful concept is there in Sanatana Dharma of the Mrityunjaya mantra. Many people say chant the Mrityunjaya mantram, death will go away. But the Mrityunjaya mantram is not about death going away. It just says, I worship Shiva in the first line. And then they say, may Shiva help me detach like a cucumber fruit. Urvarukam iva bandhanan. May I detach myself like a cucumber fruit. Nowhere is it written, may death not come, may Shiva protect me from death. No, it's just written, this Kanchi Mahapariva had said, why cucumber fruit? See, any other fruit like mango fruit or apple, I'm just giving an example. The fruit is, let's say this is the fruit, this is the mother plant. The mother plant forms a tissue, particular tissue through which the fruit falls down. So in most cases, the mother plant lets go of the fruit. But for cucumber, only cucumber, that's why they specifically say Uruva Rukameva Bandhana, like a cucumber. The moment the cucumber realizes it's ripened, it forms the tissue on its own and it lets go from the mother plant. In other words, we are praying, may I be like a cucumber, that I realize that my time is up. My kalam is coming to a, you just realize my kalam is over and I let go. Urva Rukameva Bandhanan. May I let go of all the bandhanan. That's why Mrityor Mokshiya Maamritat. Liberate me from death and lead me to immortality. So in other words, there is no death here. There is only immortality. If you realize, you have an option now. We are all going to die in inverted commas. Whether we want to be a mango fruit that the mother plant has to make us die, or we become like a cucumber that we let go when the time is correct and just move on to the next dimension.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So this is something that I lost two of my uncles in the past, in fact, three of my uncles in the past few years, very short span of time. My cousin from England, London, he when his father passed away, that was the first, death, and he was the last brother for my father. He passed away, and he wrote a very nice note actually on Facebook that it is just that he has moved to the next room. I don't think he has gone anywhere. It was very touching. It was a very sad moment for all of us. But as you said, I think everyone, and my father said he was there when my uncle passed away. So he was very close to him and he saw him. He said he had a smiling face when he passed away. So that's it's very important. When you need to move and move on. We have a live example here. Shankar, his parents, both of whom I know, they decided to go, I think, is what I always think. They just decided to go.
Yep.
Is what I feel. Because it was all so sudden and big shock.
For us.
Yes, absolutely. For us, not for them.
That is where the reconciliation part comes. The reconciliation is always for those who are left behind.
Correct.
And that is
So-
where, again, the rituals play a part. Because
Very true.
no matter how much you prepare yourself for this eventuality, you are never prepared. So that numbness that comes into the body, the rituals have a wonderful way of taking it out.
Beautiful. Beautifully summarized, Shankar. The numbness is taken away by the rituals. Very nice. So I'm kind of through with all the questions that I had for today.
Wonderful, wonderful
I have
questions,
many,
wonderful
many
session.
more actually, but in the interest of time, I do not want to just hold on all of you. I'm seeing Shankar's getting calls all the time. And being a Saturday, I mean, here in Germany, we don't work on Saturdays. So.
Those are the days when we actually start working in India.
So
Great
thank you
fun.
so much. Thank you so much, both of you, for the beautiful session. I'm hoping to have more such sessions, next.
We will. I get to pull Shiv's legs, which is quite rare. So thanks.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye.
Namaskaram. Yeah.